Lovely. So welcome from wherever you've just joined. And see if you can keep your cameras off and mics muted just for the next hour or so. But just see how you find yourself in this moment. Just notice what parts are present. Notice what the breath is doing. And notice how the body follows, how the body tends to go inside and marry whatever is happening in the mind. And notice if that's true for you. Notice if that's true. If your mind is feeling quiet, the body will also tend to feel quiet and soft. The heart will feel open. Maybe a gentle smile on the lips. The throat feels open. But if the mind is busy and worrying about the past or the future, the body will also reflect that in the position that it will take. Well, either the shoulders will rise up, the heart will feel closed. So see what's true for you right now. See what is present. And especially in this moment, notice what's happening in the body. Which parts are here? Typically, we tend to hold parts in the parts of the body that hold tension. So around the neck, the shoulders, the chest, the diaphragm, the tummy, and maybe some tension in the upper legs. How can we make a little bit more space for whatever is here? How can we create that sense of openness, the welcome mat? And just noticing the breath, that can be the first step into realizing that in this moment, It's okay. Whatever's showing up, it's okay. From the point of view of mindfulness, so long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. This is a little quote from John Kabat-Zinn. And this quote has really stayed with me for around 15 years now. I've always had this anchor in the breath. So long as I'm breathing, there is more right with me than wrong with me. And is that true for you now? Can it be true? Can you allow this simple knowing become the truth for you right now? So the first step in embodying the 8 C's and the 5 P's of self can be as simple as returning to the breath and allowing the breath to be the anchor back into this sense of okayness, sense of enough. And in this moment, see if you can really allow yourself to just be. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. Be here now. And keep returning to this phrase. So long as I'm breathing, there's more right with me than wrong with me. Notice if there's any parts here that have a different story. That would like to point out all the reasons and the long list of what is wrong. See if we can gently navigate back to this sense of okayness through breathing. And this is the initial, this is the first step in embodying self. And we're not trying to get rid of any parts, any feelings, any sensations here. It's simply to recognize that no matter what is showing up in the awareness of self is welcome. And if you notice a part that says something like, yes, but this isn't welcome. I can't welcome this. Maybe it's speaking in reference to another part. If you can make space for that as well. And continue to go back to that sense of okayness, just so long as I'm breathing. And parts may come and say, yes, but I've got bills to pay. I have to speak to a difficult family member later on. Or I'm really missing a loved one. Or even my life hasn't turned out the way I had hoped. If you can continue to make space for all of that. And anchoring in the breath. And as we tune into the breath, what we're really tuning into or inviting is the presence of self as a particle through the 8 C's and the 5 P's. And as I name each of the 8 C's, just notice, be with what quality is the most required in your system right now. Confidence, creativity, courage, compassion, clarity, curiosity, connectedness, and calm. Just notice which of those will feel the most useful, the most needed. And allowing the parts to glimpse the sense of this here, that they are already with self. Even the parts that feel lonely, scared, rejected, bringing all of that in and allowing all the parts to bathe in the 8 C's, whichever one feels most aligned with your system in this moment. And bringing in the body and allowing your body to take up whatever position it needs. And if you do a quick body scan from head to toe, just notice, how can you support, how can you nurture so that you have this unity in between the body and the mind. For me, it's always the breath. For me, it's always this simple knowing that so long as I'm breathing, there's more right with me than wrong with me. If you're still noticing there's parts here that have a list of unfinished business, if you can in this moment, just for this meditation, invite these parts into your heart. And this is the spiritual heart in the center of your chest. See if you can allow them to gently rest. Previously, whenever I was aware of any parts that ruminate, I would ask them to investigate the heart, to ruminate over the heart and in the heart. What so often happened for me was that I would feel the heart so much keener. The part that was ruminating up in the head and with the thoughts was now a careful observer of the heart, was allowed to ruminate upon the heart. Its gifts were repurposed inside the heart. The ruminating parts have got such fantastic attention to detail, perfectionistic, really want to make sure they do a good job and they're heard. And see if they can be invited to be a careful observer, be a careful witness of the heart. Really being a true witness to the statement, the signature, the pattern, the flow, the rhythm of the heart. And when I did this, initially what I'd find is that I would vacillate. The part that wants to ruminate would vacillate in between the thoughts and the heart. And then after a year or so of persistently, kindly, gently inviting the ruminating, the storytelling, the narrative parts, after inviting them into the heart over and over for about a year, they kind of just stayed there. They stayed in the heart. And then that paved the way to clarity. So there's even the smallest amount of curiosity here. If there's still any parts that are busy thinking, See if you can invite them to be busy about noticing the heart and see if that's something that is of interest. And as we're tuning into the heart, this is a fantastic place to bring the breath into the heart. Expanding the front of the heart, the back of the heart, the sides. When we practice this compassionate witnessing of the heart and inviting the thinking parts into the heart, we're expanding our capacity to be in the present moment, to be a witness, a sort of a muscle memory for mindfulness. And this is very much the realm of self as a particle, very much actionable through the body, through the breath, through these practices of calling in, drawing in, expanding into the 8 C's, the 5 P's. And when we get comfortable with the heart space, when we really do see that so long as we are breathing, there's more right with us than wrong with us, we can then expand the inquiry and become curious about the space within which this breath, this actionable quality, falls into. We can be aware of the breath, we can be aware of the heart, and then we can have an awareness of the space within which the breath falls in. And initially, this can be limited to the body. There might be a part that says, well, of course, the breath falls within the lungs. And that's true. But the body is not what we're after here, because which space is the body falling into. The space we're talking about here is the awareness itself. And for me, when I start to tune into and inquire about that within which the breath falls in, for me, the concept of labels of lungs or body start to dissolve. I feel myself to be nowhere and everywhere. And this is the silent space of self as a wave. And the way it shows up for me is that it doesn't only end within the apparent boundaries of Laura's body, but it touches every heart, every mind. It is aware of everything. It's like the threads of Indra's net. Interconnected through the very fabric of existence. And then for me, once this realization lands, there is just bliss, freedom, liberation. It's that sense of coming home. It's when, as a particle, I look up at the starry night sky and I see a star. When I look up at it, I see myself as that star, not separate from it. And just as Joni Mitchell sang, we are stardust. And the knowing that lands here for me when there is this expansion, even the blurring of the boundaries of the body. The knowing that lands is that no matter how hidden in the depths, in the shadows, no matter how burdened, no matter how lonely the parts are, they are made of stardust. And the parts just get this sense of upliftment. And in the non-dual sense, the stardust that Joni sings about is really the awareness. We are made of awareness. We are awareness. And that awareness can become focused, or it can narrow into or contract into a sensation in the body. It can focus into the part or any burdens of the part, but it is still awareness. Only now it presents in a slightly more focused, contracted way, not negative. Notice focused and contracted doesn't mean negative. It's only conditioning of another part that would believe so, that would believe that the contraction or the focusing of awareness is something that is negative. And we can vacillate or pendulate or titrate or slide in between these different states of awareness from that panoptic bird's eye view of self as a wave, the Indra's net, all the way down or all the way along, not wanting to give it levels, not wanting to call it down. Maybe better to say all the way along, to individual parts with their unique burdens. And along is already a concession that we have to make. It's already a label that is necessary for the intellectual understanding of what is best experienced in the awarenessing. But let's use that word so we can travel along these states of awareness from self as a wave to the unique burdens. And all of that exists within one field of consciousness. And the lila, the divine play of life, one of the P's of self-playfulness, is that we somehow have the ability to move along or slide along this attunement, this scale. But again, scale, the word scale could mean that down one end it's positive and down the other end is negative. And again, I'm trying to be careful with the words that I use here. In the end, it's possible to be all of it and none of it at the same time. And there might be some parts here that are very puzzled by this. A part might think, how can I be with the pain that I hold and at the same time with self? How can that be a possibility? How can that be true when I'm still hurting? And my good news, or my hope for these parts, is that one day they know and feel that to be the truth. And the founder of IFS speaks so beautifully about being a hope merchant. And I'm here to say to all the parts that it is possible to arrive at this place of knowing, where the parts no longer feel separate from self. And that doesn't mean that they need to stop or that they don't carry on being present, witnessed, co-creating with self. It just means that they no longer see themselves as separate from self. And when we arrive at this ability to vacillate in between these different states of awareness or witnessing, we arrive at this sense of, or this knowing that we're actually always home. We know that all we need to do is be home. Or vacillate back to home, or to the awareness of home. And that's back to self. And then the way that shows up in the body mind or the neural network of the brain is that we reorganize the bias. So the body mind is initially biased towards the negative. Research shows that the body mind is like Teflon for positive, Velcro for negative. When we realize that we are already home, we flip that, we flip it around. So now the body mind is Teflon for negative and Velcro for positive. We reorganize or restructure the conditioning or the program that we have inherited and that we were brought up with. And it takes practice. Initially, this work does require some effort. But once the balance is attuned to awarenessing, being present, being witness to, whatever activity is happening inside or outside. In IFS terms, when we no longer have the capacity to blend with a part or to contract into a part, that's when we land home. And we enter this sense of flow, this harmony, co-creation with self, parts with self, body mind with the world with the universe with source. I know this to be the truth. I know this to be my natural state of being. And sometimes it can feel impossible that we will ever arrive at such a place. And there might be some parts that are still so far removed from the light of self, or believe themselves to be removed, that it can be hard to fathom that we could ever be in such a place. And yet, self is the primal, self is native. Everything unfolds within the space of self. Everything is ultimately self. Self contracted and focused and refracted through a part that is velcroed to conditioning, beliefs and experiences that it went through, believes itself not to be self. And I see that. That makes sense. And yet when the burdens lift, dissolve in the light of awareness of self, the part recognizes self-energy and begins to co-create with self, with ease, as self, through self. And notice how all that lands in your heart. Notice how the breath lands in the heart. We started off with the quote from John Kabat-Zinn, That so long as you are breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. Notice if there's any more openness, more acceptance, non-resistance to this idea. And as we draw this meditation to a close, see if you can be your own hope merchant. See if you can, as self, continue to provide, support, nourish, as we come back to our online space here. If you could become aware of the breath in the body more consciously now, coming back from this meditative journey. And we'll open up the space for sharing. Thank you.